Welcome to Podcast Monetization Secrets. My name is Ray Ireland, and let's dive into the three strategic shifts to amplify your voice, grow your audience, and monetize smarter. So let's bust out of being that secret in your audience and in your industry. I'm going to show you how. So, a lot of you maybe have thought this, how do I get my audience to love paying me more? Or I wish I could get a behind the scenes look at how podcasts are set up to monetize. So I could probably do that in my own business. Or even, I wish I could easily grow my buyer list and reach more people. Or how do I convert a listener into a client if I do have a podcast? So I'm going to be addressing all of these things with you guys today. So I can guarantee you, I'm going to share something fundamentally different from any other podcast training that you've seen before because I know how to help you grow faster, stay consistent, and monetize smarter. So stick with me here, bring your open minded attention, your notebooks, and let's dive in. So, what I want to make sure you walk away with is how to double your brand's visibility and engagement within 90 days or less, how to have a high converting podcast that monetizes in month one, right from the start, how to create more engagement online so followers become listeners who then become clients. And I got a freebie at the end. So stick around. Okay, so I'm showing you that podcasting is truly one of the most powerful growth tools in today's industry. And if you're not using it, you might not notice it so much right now, but you're missing out. But I will tell you, years down the line, even 6 months, 12 months from now, you're going to start to see those who have been doing their podcast or have launched are going to have this traction and audience and connection that you might not have. So, this is why I want to catch you guys up to speed. So, when it comes to your podcast struggles, I get them. Like, if you've started, if you haven't started, if you haven't monetized yet, I've been podcasting for over 5 years, and I want to show you some of the shortcuts that I've learned and that we've now implemented with all of our clients as well. So, we've helped over 100 podcasters overcome some of these challenges around monetization, growing their audience, and converting their audience into clients. So, the result is over 300 million downloads across our client database. Yes, we have truly made this global impact, and I can't wait to show you how to do that with your mission as well. So these are some of the shows that we've had the pleasure of working with and launching. Our clients have also ranked in the top 20 internationally. This is in categories like health, medicine, business, like big categories that are making big waves. And they've also built consistent 6 to 7 figure revenue streams just from their shows. So I'm going to show you how we did that. Here's some of our friends and our Vault podcasting clients and family. Here's a few more of them talking about launching with clarity and confidence, just getting ready to put yourself out there, and then also being able to monetize right away. So let's go into some stats though, because 80% of listeners tune in to 7 hours weekly. This is high engagement. This is easy access. This is deep intimacy between you as a host and your listener. And that's what actually helps convert and create that trust and authority. 44% of podcasts have less than 3 episodes. You might think, what is how is that serious? It is still a wide open market. And that's why I'm doing the presentation to show you how to get in now. So that way you can be one of the people in 6 months, in 6 to 12 months, where everyone's looking at you and saying, I wish I did what they did. Oh, and start a podcast. I should have done this earlier. So go now. This is the time. Podcast listeners are also 55% more likely to buy after just listening to 3 episodes of your show. So, this is creating that niche authority that gives you that direct, intimate conversation that people are wanting to have with you, but either there's so many things that they need to get over to just get on a call with you and for you to get on a call with them. And you can't really do so many one-on-one calls, right? This is a way to reach multiple people and go for an audience, not just one person. So I want to show an example from me. This is my coach Brooke. I binge listened to 4 of her shows, and then it was an easy understanding of the value that she was going to be able to help me with, I ended up joining her high level mastermind. And to be honest, I was not planning on joining high level mastermind. Sometimes people see this and they're like, oh, well, you might just be like doing that. No, at the time I didn't, but I understood exactly how she'd be able to help me. And I saw the value. I trusted her leadership, and it made it an easy yes for me, which is really cool. And it's not just for her, right? But here, let's break down some of the raw truths about podcasting because you might think, well, this is all seeming a little too good to be true. So, most podcasts average 30 to 50 listeners per episode initially. All right, let's just use the numbers that we have, right? It might not be thousands right away, and that's okay. Only 10% of podcasts are monetized, but with the right strategy, you can definitely join that top tier faster. Again, it's like not many people are doing this. So another thing, a myth I want to break, it's not going to like build overnight success. Maybe you're that 1% that randomly has this overnight pop. But what it does do is accelerate that path to long-term trust and authority. When I started my first podcast, it was around 7 years ago. And I did that in relationship to also starting my first coaching business. And it helped me build up that credibility. And I was able to sign clients because they got to have these longer form conversations with me. And over time, that built to that grew to building my audience, being able to and launch a book, have it become an international bestseller within just the first 2 days. I've been able to launch other podcasts since there. So everyone gets to come on this journey with me because they've connected with me in this deep way where they also want to see, what's Ray up to next. So that is that long-term authority and trust that we want to build because people that have listened for years ago still come to me and say, "Oh, I've been listening for this long now. I want to work with you in this way, or I want to, start my podcast. I want to share my story." And so the ripple effect can be long lasting. So pros, growth, authority, connection, long-term trust, community building, but there definitely are cons, right? It's a time commitment, that consistency. There's marketing efforts. It's not an overnight success. And I get this, and some of these things, it might feel like, oh, well, it feels like so much, and I don't know if it's even going to work. And I get it. And it's not your fault. I really want you to know that because to be honest, you were probably handed this like crazy, busy, noisy online world. And you're like, where do I fit in? How do I get my voice heard over all this other stuff? Everyone's telling me try this strategy, do that. And it just is confusing, right? So I just want to like pull the curtain back and break down what has been working. These are three shows that I've launched, all of them that have monetized. So here's what makes our clients' podcast different. It's not just me monetizing, it's also all of them. Our client sees an average of a 300% increase in downloads within 90 days. 87% of our clients successfully monetize within 6 months. And a majority of those actually are in the first month. And these are not cherry picked results. This works for our clients that are both complete podcast beginners and the ones that are experienced creators. Maybe they're relaunching a show, all of that. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to show you who should start a show and when, the number one shift for podcast success in 2025, and our proven monetization process. All right. So, who should start a podcast? They are not just for people that are established already or already have audiences. It's actually perfect for up and coming coaches and industry experts. This can be in real estate, finance, health, legal, especially these industries where there aren't as many personal brands, you can really stand out. So here's some stages of the different podcasters, and it's basically going from conception into the launch into becoming an authority into monetization. And you can actually move through this triangle pretty quickly. So we're going bottom up. So I just want you to ask yourself, like, where am I now? Am I in that dreamer phase of, maybe just still dreaming up this podcast, or maybe I have a few downloads happening, less than 1,000 downloads a month. You're still finding your voice and your launch, but you're moving into becoming a builder, right? And it's getting that first $1,000 downloads and then moving into the 10,000 10,000 downloads. This is really the goal that we have a lot of our clients want to hit, is getting to that first 1,000 downloads. So I'll be sharing that. But from there, it's becoming a strategist. Then this is where you're really getting dialed in with your unique content repurposing and omnipresence. Then you get into that authority space where you really are the authority in your industry. Your podcast is monetizing, and then you get into the legacy leader, where you are really owning the platform, and there's things that you can do as in that ownership. So we work with people at all these different stages in taking them into that next level. So where do you want to be in a year? What does that look like for you? Any stage, a podcast will set you apart, build your authority, and create lasting impact. I already shared a little bit about my start, and I was able to be on Entrepreneur Magazine, NBC, Forbes, like all these other platforms, released original music, bestseller. There's been so many fun things that I've been able to do. And I really think that it is because I started with the podcast and created my brand and authority and audience right there. So, when is the right time to start a podcast? Here are three questions I want you to ask yourself if you haven't yet. Are you ready to build authority and grow your business? Or do you enjoy sharing stories that inspire and teaching your audience through storytelling? And do you have a vision for more speaking and developing your online brand within the next year? Because if you have that vision for within the next year, you want to reverse engineer, which is why you're here, while you're figuring out the best tools and strategies that are working, so that way you can do what is already proven. But if you want to do it in a year, you got to start now. You can't start your podcast in a year because then you're going to still have to delay a whole 6 months to a year to get to where you want to be as a speaker and as an um, authority in that space. So if any of those were a yes for you, then the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is now. Welcome to the conversation. I love it. Let's dive in. Podcasting is really quite simple, and it is easy to start and relatively inexpensive. There's a bunch of different ways that you can get into podcasting. The coolest thing is that it's a low barrier to entry. There is no, you have to be making this amount of money or making this impact. You can just get started. And here's one of our clients, Katya, who was so excited. She just got all of her gear, and then we set up full production studios too. So there's just such a range, and just do whatever's going to help you get started first. So you might be saying, then why isn't everyone doing this? Like, this is sounding so good, Ray. And I get it. Usually it comes down to mindset when I'm talking to people. It's these what if questions that stop people in their track. And I just want to say, like, that is the enemy getting in the way of you doing your mission. So if you're feeling like the thoughts are, what if no one listens? What if I sound silly? What if I waste my time? No, like, we want to figure out what is that belief that's stopping you, but then move forward. And so these might be some of the other ones that I've heard, and I've had the pleasure of walking people through. Is I don't know, have enough time to start a podcast, and the truth is okay, that's fine. You're probably going to just be sitting in the same place now that in a few years, in a year, in 6 months, you're going to be in that same place that you are now, while others are starting their podcast and going after it, right? So another one, I don't have a big enough audience to start. And you might realize, well, people might be waiting for you, right? Who's going to go to a party if they don't even know a party's happening, right? So it starts with you, and that's true leadership. I have no idea how to make money from this. That could be, very legitimate, right? But again, it's just stealing that momentum from you, that momentum of knowing you have a mission that needs to be shared through your message. And that's why you're here today. I'm going to break it down for you. You're in good hands. So I don't want this to be a distraction from growing my business. Super valid, right? I remember when I was starting out, and a lot of my coaches, it's like, every week almost, I'm going through, okay, what can I delegate, delete, automate? And that's smart business. But this is not the thing. The podcast is not the thing that you want to actually delete or delegate or automate, because this is the human to human connection that is actually slipping away in the world of AI. I'm going to talk more about that. But this is one of those seven-figure CEO actions that should be on your calendar and should be a priority. No one will actually listen to my podcast. Well, keep saying that. You know what's going to happen. No one will. But you never know who's going to be on the other side if you actually get it started. There are too many moving parts. There are a lot of moving parts, let's be real. But there are ways to shortcut that learning gap and how long that takes. And so again, way to be here, way to be an active learner, engaging, diving in, getting resources, tools, and strategy, because that will shortcut you to the results that you want. And again, you don't want to be the one not doing this, because there are other people online all around the world that are learning and are taking in all this information. So the truth is, no one runs a marathon on day one. We might know this, but we got to just put that in our frame. Okay, we're beginners here. Bring that beginner mindset, and you will be on your way to success. So, if you do want some results like our clients, we've had some incredible stuff happen. Like one show that just launched recently, two new clients in the first 48 hours. Another one that launched, we put up a monetization strategy for her. 30 new clients within 2 weeks of the podcast being live. There are such cool things happening, and let's break them down. So, this truly is the goal. These are the three shifts for podcast success in 2025. The shift one is monetization first. You can't think about monetizing later. You have to start your show with that from the beginning. It's not about building your audience and figuring it out later. Same thing with business. I'm going to figure it out. No, we figure it out first. We create a firm foundation of monetization. And so, what traditional podcast advice is telling you is that you can you want to focus on the numbers, you want to focus on the downloads, right? And there's, of course, some truth to that. But I want to tell you the number one shift, and this is the number one shift. If this is all you get out of this entire training, where we're like 10 minutes in, if you only do this, this is going to completely change the way you look at podcasting. And I definitely used to focus on these wrong metrics. So I get it. This is downloads do not equal success. This is just like followers does not mean influence on Instagram, right? How many people do we know that have bought their followers? And you look at the comments, there's no engagement, there's obviously nothing happening. This is same thing with podcasting. We cannot solely rely on the downloads to say that that's a successful show. Because here's the reason why. If you do that, you might actually start to try and work the wrong strategies at the wrong time, and that can actually burn out your audience. And I might share a story about that later, but let me just say for now, personally did this and experienced it. So we have to make this shift. Here's the number one shift. What really matters with an entrepreneur with a podcast? It's actually revenue per listener. That means you are speaking to the person that is needing what you're sharing. And there can be a relationship built, which ends up turning into what? Monetization, because now you are holding wisdom and value that the listener doesn't have and wants. So, of course, it makes sense for them to give you money in exchange with understanding, gaining the wisdom, shortcutting the years of learning, shortcutting the other investments, right? All of that. And that's how you can monetize your show. So, Sammy and I have spent a combined 30 years and hundreds and of thousands of dollars learning some of these things, studying performance, storytelling, marketing, so that you don't have to. We can't go into everything in this short masterclass, right? When there's three things that we like to call an evolved podcast, and that is storytelling, that is AI, that is monetization. So we're diving into just one right now, and this is the monetization piece. But I just want to bring it all together, and we're going to go into some of the approaches and systems we have. So, this is a way for revenue systems to be built into every single episode so that when you launch, you can monetize it right away. So here's our monetization formula. So we have three main pieces. It's the hook, which creates the attention, which everyone knows we're playing a game of attention here on social media and the online space. You want to be the one that is gaining that attention. And not out of an egotistical way, but out of a way like, hey, I have something good that's going to help your ideal clients, right? So the hook, then we have retaining them. So that's where you get to build the trust and authority. And then third, you have the call to action, and that's where you convert them from listener to client, right? So it's attract, it's nurture, and then it's convert. And that's the monetization formula. You can look at these other pieces here because when it goes into the hook, we want to use those attention grabbing statements. You want to have your anchor story dialed in. This is the main story that you're sharing your full brand's message about and your ideal client connection point. You go into retaining, and this is what happens when you get consistent with doing your podcast episodes, right? You have those that nice length of time. It's not a quick like just flip through, clickbait sort of thing. This is people spending time with you on the other side of your podcast episodes. So you got to deliver that value, demonstrate authority, and build your trust. And then when you go into the call to action, the monetize piece, this is where you need to just make sure that you have that clear call to action, and aligned offer that you're leading them to, and ease of action. This should be really repeatable, and you should have systems in place to make it super streamlined and simple, not only for you as the one presenting, but also for the person on the other side that is following your instructions on where to go next. Okay. So you might start to see how your show can be a full profit machine for your business. And you truly only need 100 fans to generate six figures, right? With this type of approach. So, what I'm going to share next is going to save you from losing your entire audience by using that wrong strategy at the wrong time, like I personally experienced. And so, this is where your podcast is a sales conversation. So, when you look at this is the monetization pyramid. I told you, I'm breaking it all down. I'm giving you all the secrets here. This is the monetization pyramid. And what most people do when they come to us and they say, I want to monetize my podcast, they start off at the top. They're saying, how do I do sponsors? How do I get this uh, to work? Right. And that is not the approach you want to have. Let me just take a little sip of water here. Okay. I'm getting so excited. Okay. So that is not the approach you want to have because that's a take sort of energy. First off, people feel that. They feel that in their podcast. And I told you I was going to share a very personal story. My first podcast that I released, it did really well. It monetized. And there was a certain point where I actually was not tracking my stats, staying connected, really engaging with my listeners, and the numbers were going up and up. And I got excited. I'm like, let's monetize it in this way that everyone wants to monetize it with sponsors, right? I put sponsors in it, and it completely killed my show because my listeners did not want sponsors. They wanted me. They weren't ready for that. And so you just want to know that if you're starting at the top, that's going to be the slowest path to profit. And that is the nicest way to say it. You could also completely lose your audience by starting up there. So we start at the bottom, and then you work your way up from here. And there are more advanced monetization strategies for established shows that go beyond what you see on here. But these are really the basics that you want to have this foundation before you start playing with anything else. So that start anytime offer is where you want to get started. Then you move into your campaign limited time offer, into the reoccurring offers, into the evergreen and automated offers, and then into the ABS. And these are all within your podcast. All right. Shift number two is targeted messaging. So when you shift from talking about everything, it's the ratio. Well, guess what? Even if you have a small audience, most people are not going to just jump onto like the ratio or your Samantha show or whatever it is. They want to know what they're getting out of the show. So you got to go from talking about everything to precision that is going to attract your clients. So this is all dialed in the messaging. So today we can use AI. This is amazing. There's so many incredible AI tools I shared earlier. I can't get into all of that right now in this training. But You can do market research, you want to do beta testing, piloting groups, so you can understand your listener and that ideal listener, the one that you're going to make the biggest impact on. And then from there, you find the best topics to speak on. So once you do this heavy lift, and again, you can use AI, so it's not a heavy lift anymore, which is the most exciting thing. Then you can spend more time really being in your genius zone, is which is just being you, doing those seven-figure CEO high level strategy actions, which are showing up and talking. So here's a little prompt you can use if you are into the AI space to really truly understand who your ideal listener is. So there's that. And if you do want to get more prompts and things like that, I've been sharing a lot of that stuff on my Instagram. So come hang out with me over there. So your podcast, again, I've said this a few times, but it should be a high leverage action that you're doing weekly. So and not that you have to show up weekly. I'll actually break down that strategy for you. But the thing that you should be doing is creating relationships and accelerating those relationships further. That is something that AI cannot do for you, and therefore it should be at the top of your priority list. Every episode should create multiple business opportunities, and you can use, guesting, you getting on other shows, other people on your shows to borrow authority, share audiences, connect with leads, make JVs, create referrals. This was one that we did, and it was amazing. Really, from one episode, and this is after tracking after a month. And the cool thing is with podcasts, you can track and people are still going to go back to previous episodes, even, years after. But this was one episode, 1 month. We looked at it and there were 1,500 new clicks from one show to the other after we put a guest strategically on a show. And there was a 10% audience growth of new ideal on the show listening. And $2,000 revenue with one partnership, and this was in 6 weeks. So you can see how that can actually really multiply very quickly without really needing to do much. It's just using those relationships that you already have in a really strategic way. There's so many other podcast opportunities that I can't go into all of them, but I want to kind of open up your mind for what is possible when you have a podcast. Those strategic partnerships like JVs, affiliates, cast swaps, audience shares, and then professional opportunities like speaking, consulting, book deals, board positions, awards, recognition. These are things outside of the monetization opportunity. We've seen national holidays get created. Shout out to National Forgiveness Day that one of our clients created after she had her podcast and discovered through that engagement with her podcast that her people wanted a way to anchor in the forgiveness that they had experienced through her show and through her work. So cool how this happened. Other journalistic integrity awards for his podcast specifically, and we got to say, like, here in the US, there's been a lot of political stuff, and we're not going to get into politics here, but there was a lot of podcasting that happened right around the time of the elections, and that changed the projections of the elections through podcasting. So amazing. So I just want to share these to show you how powerful a podcast can be. But let's also take it down a notch, right? You might not be getting journalistic awards or making national holidays, or you might. But if you're not and you want to start, like one step down, just remember hope. Help one person every day. And this is what you can do with your podcast. And this is truly when I'm doing my episodes, that's what I'm thinking about is I hope this reaches one person and changes their life and helps them today. And with that, I mean, you just get consistent with that, you're going to be helping a lot of people in your lifetime. And that's true legacy impact. So let's recap. We had shift number one, which is monetize first. Shift number two is to use AI and dial in your message, those psychographics of your ideal listeners, so you can show up and do the things only you can do, like accelerate your relationships, get on new platforms, and have space to focus on bigger picture things, impact mission driven things. Because I know that's why you're here, right? If you were just in it for the money, you probably would be taken a different course or training. I know you're here to actually impact people's lives. So this is what we're doing here. Tip number three, omnipresent visibility. All right, the traditional approach is to just create one podcast episode and hope and pray for listeners. What we do is create once, then deploy everywhere to build consistent, client attracting messages across every platform. So now you're seeing, there's some proven podcast strategies, some tools, as an action taker, as an impact maker, as a world changing entrepreneur, we really want to show you how to multiply your time that you're spending doing your podcast. And this is your time and your budget and your investments, right? So, whether you're working with someone to get strategic, someone aka of all podcasting, but if you're working with someone, to help dial in this whole podcast thing, work on your marketing, your messaging, your branding, or even if you're just investing in the tools to be able to do it, we want to multiply that investment. So here's the most powerful, effective, and easy way to do that is one 30-minute episode becomes all of these clips. So most people don't actually need even like half of them, but let's see a real example. This is JJ Virgin. So one episode, 5 tips for CEOs and weight training, right? From that, we created 5 short form videos. Each habit became its own micro content. Videos got 10,000 views. Then 15 quote graphics. Each quote was connected to a specific pain point. Then we made 3 in-depth blog posts about those key concepts. Then there was a value pack newsletter sent to subscribers, exclusive insights, built her email list. This was at the beginning. She has way more than that, her subscribers now, but we had LinkedIn articles created all from that one podcast, right? That one episode, positioning her as the industry leader, generating summit clients worth, it's now much more than 500,000. Pretty amazing. Each podcast episode was designed for maximum engagement from the start. So what we did was we helped her launch her podcast ecosystem in just 2 focused hours a week. And then after launch, you maintain it with just a half day per month for the full month of content that is also then expanding and breaking up into all those little pieces that we just showed you using JJ's example. So this is using a content multiplication system, right? Where there's no wondering where to post or where. There's no, brain your brain is not being used for decisions, right? Decision fatigue for entrepreneurs is a real thing. We want to put that away. So there's no struggling with design or editing, all templatized and systematized. So again, we don't have enough time on here to show you exactly how, but you can use AI and tech to make it super easy. And here's the best part is the omnipresence in your market. So it's that less decision fatigue, trying to think what to post, and truly everyone, wherever they're connected with you, they're receiving the same message. So here's a few more timelines here. So you can launch your show in as little as 2 weeks. You get that easy production and syndication flow set up. Use a content multiplication system, and then a half day a month for podcasting for that high converting content. Okay? Do you think you can do this, right? I've shown you all the keys. So let's recap. So you must have the following to be able to have podcast monetization: a marketing plan, an audience growth plan, a monetization plan, and a consistency plan. Once you have that, you're off to the races. So what you just learned, we went over the stages of being a podcaster. You declared your next level of authority. We went over how to overcome limiting beliefs and launch with confidence. We went over how to show up consistently online without burnout. That's really important, not just work, 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 right? But being really smart with how we're working. I shared the content multiplication system. And if you just implemented one of these, the number one game changing key, do you remember it? It's revenue per listener, not just download numbers. Or if you just implement this other one of the 3 shifts to double your visibility and engagement in 90 days, right? That's monetization, messaging, and visibility. You guys, we just went over so much good. You are an icon. You are incredible. You are a leader, and you were born for this time, right? And it's now to share and speak boldly. People are on the other side of your obedience, of stepping out and doing the thing that you know you're called to do. Launching that podcast and doing it well, not just throwing something up, but truly doing it well, not just for you, but for your people as well. And so, congratulations. Now you'll be 95% more strategic than other podcasters out there. You're ready to monetize your show for that long lasting impact. We want to make sure that show is creating an ROI so that way you are dedicated to putting more episodes out there. The best shows are the ones that have, hundreds of episodes, right? That's who you need to become and that's who you get to become. But it's going to take that time and that investment. And so we want to make sure if you're dedicated for that long lasting impact, we want to make sure that it is monetizing right from the start. All right, here's your next step. You can definitely try implementing these strategies on your own, and just know you're going to have to test and refine and stay consistent. Results might vary. If you want the next step and some support, a guide for how to reach 1,000 downloads for your podcast. So I'll walk you step by step through our signature proven process to create more visibility, value, and momentum for your podcast. All right. So go ahead and just grab that right there. And I want to share you with our community. We have an incredible online community. So go ahead and just take a photo. Let me know what you're declaring when it comes to sharing your story. Maybe it even is around your podcast or launching your podcast. Connect with us here. There's my Instagram. There's Sammy Shoebox Moses's Instagram, my hubby and business partner. Tag us in your story. We're going to share you, and I cannot wait to see what comes out of this. Many blessings.